What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there is a ton of news to go over just outside of the Tokyo Auto Show, and then there's also a ton of stuff for the Tokyo Auto Show. So feel free to skip around. In the description below I always have timestamps, so if there's a section that you're not interested in, you can skip through. That way this pretty long video might not be quite as long depending on what you're interested in. But anyway, just gonna get right into all the Tokyo debuts here. First, Subaru's revealed the Viziv Performance Concept, which is basically a WRX preview for the next-gen WRX. And looks very good, so you have to keep in mind this is a concept, and Subaru concepts are often much better looking than the actual production vehicle. And that's not just Subaru, a lot of other companies do that with concept cars. But if you remember, there was the awesome WRX concept from a few years ago, I think 2013, and then that led to the 2015 WRX, which turned out to, still look good in my opinion, but was a lot less aggressive than the concept. So think of, a 2015 version of, this, and kind of, tone it down a little bit, and you're probably looking at something that's a fairly good preview. I'm sure the front bumper will look similar, the grille, some of those basic elements and things like that, but I don't think it's going to look as awesome as this, but I would love to be proven wrong. Hopefully they do make it this awesome. Anyway, their whole ethos with this new one is they want to deliver enjoyment and peace of mind. So it has a lot of driver assist systems with the eyesight technology and stuff. So it's not autonomous or anything they say, but it's just driver aids they're saying, which help improve the driving experience. They say the design philosophy is called dynamic times solid in all capital letters. And so that's just what they're going for, whatever that means. But it's basically, a design study that they say is for a sports sedan, and the WRX is one of them. Is what the one designer here said. He says it's not so far from the next generation of the WRX. So again, it is a preview, but I wouldn't get your hopes up it's going to look exactly like this. Some more production stuff that Subaru showed at the Tokyo Auto Show was the BRZ STI Sport, which is basically just a different version of the BRZ Performance package we get here in the States, essentially. And this was shown a few weeks ago, but just recapping all the Subaru debuts here. They also showed off the S208 WRX STI, which is again a Japanese-only thing, and they're only making 450 of them. 329 horsepower, nice little bump here for the S208s, and has a little bit of additional aero and things like that. And does look very good. But yeah, that's it as far as all the debuts for Subaru there. Next, though, is Mitsubishi. Now, we've been hearing for many weeks about this e-Evolution they're going to be showing at Tokyo, and they revealed it fully here. They didn't give any specifics because this is just a concept, so no kind of horsepower numbers or anything like that. All we know is it's all-wheel drive, it's fully electric, and that's about it. So, of course, it has the normal array of autonomous driver aids and all that kind of stuff, all futuristic concept car stuff that we've been hearing a million times here in the past few weeks. But it does look very good, I have to say. If you would get rid of the hindrance that this is an Evo or supposed to be an Evo, and just look at it as a new Mitsubishi crossover, it looks pretty cool. So we'll have to wait and see, if they do in fact produce it. And I'll be talking more about Mitsubishi's future models towards the end of this video. Next, though, Honda has showed off their sports EV concept, which is this really cool, really fun-looking little coupe. This thing is basically, it's on the same platform as the urban EV concept, which was the hatchback version of this kind of that they showed at the Frankfurt Motor Show a couple of months ago. And now we have the sports EV. And the good thing, though, that's encouraging is they already confirmed, Honda, that the urban EV concept, the hatchback one, is going to be produced and built, and it's going to be arriving in Europe in 2019, and they actually confirmed at the Tokyo Auto Show here this week that it's going to actually be arriving in Japan in 2020. So hopefully it'll make its way to the States as well, because that hatchback was really cool looking too. And but if it's on the same platform, that means it's a lot cheaper to produce this new little sports car as well. So if it has the same basic underpinnings, just with a cooler body, I think there's a pretty decent chance something like that could actually make its way to production. Wouldn't be any kind of S2000 successor if it's fully electric and stuff, but could be a very cool little sporty offering from Honda. And so fingers crossed they actually do make that. Speaking of the S2000, though, someone managed to sit down with the company boss from Honda, and they were talking about the possibility of a future S2000. And he's like, we need more time. He's like, we need to develop a business case for whether or not an S2000 makes sense, a new one, and what it would be. Would it be hybrid? Would it be old school? Would it be high tech? What would they do with this new S2000 if they were to make it, and what would actually sell? And once they figure that out, and if they can make a business case for it, then he's like, we will start looking into whether or not we want to do one. So, I mean, we're talking probably at least 5, maybe even 10 years away for any kind of actual S2000 successor. So, gotta wait a good while longer, but at least it sounds like something they're considering. So that's encouraging nonetheless. Mazda had 2 beautiful concepts they showed here at the Tokyo Auto Show. The first was the Mazda Vision Coupe, and although they call it a coupe, it is clearly a 4-door. This is a little bit more of a stretched out version of the Vision concept that they had, that was, looking like it was going to be a Mazda RX-9 last year, and now we have this, and it's beautiful. It's basically, Mazda says this is only meant to preview their future design language, although they did say that they would like to do some kind of full-size sedan, because they say that is usually, it shows that they are going up market. If you have a large sedan on offer in your company, it means you're a little bit higher end, I suppose, is kind of what they were inferring here. And so maybe they do have plans to do some kind of, Mazda 9 sedan at some point, but this is basically just a design concept to show you what future Mazdas will look like there in the front. It looks very cool, although I'm not sure that hood that kind of edges out over the front bumper would ever pass pedestrian safety regulations, because that looks like it would not be comfortable if it chopped into your knees. But otherwise, I think it's a beautiful looking car, and it's really cool that they actually are bucking the trend of autonomous stuff, and they're saying, no, we're not doing anything autonomous. They're like, this car is supposed to be giving you the right tools for the driving experience, and they want you to be involved in the driving and not just have some autonomous thing that rolls you around without any input on your own. So, very cool that they've shown that here. They've also shown off the Mazda Kai Concept. And so basically this is previewing the next-gen Mazda 3 and another beautiful looking vehicle. I mean, the current Mazda 3 is, I think, probably the best looking of all the small compact sedans currently. And this is really takes it just even to a more attractive level and just really beautiful looking. They say that the new Skyactiv X engine is what's powering this, which is their new compression ignition system, which sounds pretty amazing. And so yeah, but they said that this is basically, they're going to produce this, and this is going to be, coming out here relatively soon. Obviously toned down a little bit for production, but it should look very similar to this, I think. It's just going to be really awesome. So anyway, cool to see that. Nissan has shown off the IMx Concept, which is going to be this autonomous EV crossover. Now, this is just a concept car, but it has some interesting ideas to it. So it has 373 miles of range with batteries mounted low on the floor for better handling. It has twin motors, which gives it all-wheel drive, and they actually did say it has, they gave horsepower numbers, 429 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque here for this crossover. So it should actually get up and move pretty well. And they also said that this has this new evolution of their ProPilot system, and it's called ProPilot Drive, and it's a mode where whenever you want the car to drive itself completely autonomously, which is the direction they're heading with this ProPilot system, which is currently only for like advanced highway cruising right now. But anyway, in this drive mode for this new one, it makes it fully autonomous, and so much so, it's so confident in its driving abilities, the steering wheel disappears into the dashboard, and that allows for more room, of course, for the occupants inside there. So yes, I don't know, I feel like it's going to be a while before people trust autonomous cars enough to let the steering wheel just disappear and cruise on the highway with no ability to save it if it goes out of whack. But anyway, interesting to see that from them. Lexus, and talking more about this autonomous highway stuff and all that, Lexus showed off the LS Plus concept, which again shows future design direction, all that kind of stuff here, and shows what a future LS could look like. But it's mostly as a showcase for their new autonomous highway driving system that they actually say they're going to have on sale by 2020. And it's called Highway Teammate. And it basically allows you to drive on divided highways. It's basically like Cadillac Super Cruise system they just came out with, similar to the Tesla systems and all that. And it also includes merging and changing lanes. It stays in its lane, does the appropriate, following distances like any other adaptive cruise control system. But it's connected to a data center as well, so you can get over-the-air updates like a Tesla, so it'll constantly, be improving itself and everything. But yeah, so cool to see that. Yamaha has shown off a small little compact truck they call the Cross Hub Concept, and it's, to put it in perspective, it's about 3 feet shorter than a Tacoma. So that's how small this truck actually is, and it's very innovative. So it has this 4-seat configuration. It looks like a 2-seater, but if you look inside there, it's got this diamond style configuration, similar to like a McLaren F1, just with an additional seat. And so you have, the driver in the middle, 2 passenger seats a little bit further back, and then you have a 4th seat behind the driver there. And that gives it this diamond shape for the cab, so that Yamaha shows you can fit a dirt bike there in the back of this thing, even though it's, on the smaller side there. And you can also fit a second little mini bike if you'd like as well. And so a very cool idea. And I think with compact crossovers being so popular, an actual true compact truck could actually make a lot of sense and be a good seller. Now, Yamaha last year had this really cool sports ride concept that they never ended up building, and this may be the same thing, but they have these really good ideas at Yamaha. They should really start selling these things and building them. I think they would actually do very well. But anyway, cool to see that. Now for some more rare high-end stuff. Zagato debuted the IsoRevolta Vision Gran Turismo, which it was originally made for Gran Turismo Sport, the video game, but they're actually going to be building 3 to 5 of these things in real life. And so they have a few customers that I guess want them and are willing to pay enough. They didn't give any kind of price, but basically it's got a Corvette engine in this beautiful body. It's got a Callaway Corvette engine, so it does 997 horsepower. So the car will do 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds because it only weighs 2,500 pounds. So I'm sure lots of carbon fiber and stuff going on. Top speed, theoretically, of 227 miles per hour in this thing as well. So very impressive to see that. Another very limited production hypercar that was revealed was the Apollo Intensa Emozione, which is basically, Gumpert Apollo, if you remember those a few years ago, they divided. So now Gumpert is dissolved, but Apollo is its own company. And so now they have this new supercar called the Intensa Emozione. But this thing they're going old school with. And by old school, I mean like it doesn't have any hybrid or turbos. It's still very high tech. It has a 6.3 liter naturally aspirated V12 engine that I'm sure sounds amazing, but it has 769 horsepower, even naturally aspirated, 561 pound-feet of torque, and a 9,000 RPM redline. So just glorious. And the coolest thing is this awesome-looking hypercar here only weighs 2,756 pounds, which is almost exactly the same weight as a Subaru BRZ, with 769 horsepower. You can imagine how much fun that could be to drive. 2.7 seconds 0 to 60, they say, 208 mile per hour top speed. It has an F1 style suspension setup, and it has tons of aero, as you can see. So it actually produces almost 3,000 pounds of downforce at 186 miles per hour. And they say supposedly this thing will do over 2 Gs in cornering, just with these special Michelin tires it has and all that crazy aero. So pretty wild. They're only building 10 of these things, though, of course, and they're going to be 2.3 million euros each, which equates to, I think, like $2.76 million if they're even available here in the States. So anyway, but very awesome to see those, and yeah, pretty amazing idea as well. But yeah, so that's it for all the news from Tokyo. Now on to other auto news this week. One car that sadly did not make a Tokyo Motor Show appearance was the new Supra. Everyone was hoping, and we were kind of hearing rumors about a Supra concept that was supposed to be shown at Tokyo that supposedly just decided to not be shown. But anyway, we did actually see some new glimpses of the new Supra here this past week, thanks to some new spy photos. And the big thing about these new spy photos is that it shows production headlights and taillights. And those taillights for the first time, it's a big deal because before it was just some dummy units that always looked a little rough. Now we finally see some taillights. They actually look very similar to the ones on the FT1 concept, which is what this vehicle is going to kind of be designed after. And so it looks really good there, and it seems like it's getting pretty close to production. So hopefully this thing we get some kind of reveal. I'll talk more about that in a second though, because Auto Express, they talked with Gazoo Racing boss, one of the guys that runs Gazoo Racing, which if you remember from a few weeks ago is this new performance subdivision that Toyota is launching. It's only in Japan right now, and it's kind of like how they're putting STI sport badges on stuff that isn't actually faster. Anyway, so what this is this Gazoo, apparently in Japan, they're going to try and make the Supra one of their vehicles. So in this vehicle, this Supra might not actually have Toyota badges. It might be Gazoo Racing Supra, which sounds kind of silly to me, but that's kind of what they're referring to here, because apparently whenever the Toyota boss actually took this Supra for a spin, he wanted it to be more aggressive and more impressive, and so that's when they pulled in Gazoo Racing to help them with more of the development and make it a little more race inspired, I suppose. But yeah, Gazoo Racing is not in the United States, and they don't have any plans to roll it out, I don't think, in the United States anytime soon. So the only performance arm of Toyota that we have here is TRD, but they're not an actual sub-brand, so I don't think this would be called the TRD Supra. It'd probably just be a Toyota Supra. I mean, why mess with, a good name? Just, stick with history, call it the Toyota Supra, and be done with it. I don't know why they're messing with that. But some not so great news about the Supra, according to Auto Express. This isn't, 100% confirmed, but they're saying that the new Z4, which is, the platform mate of this vehicle, the new BMW Z4, is going to be arriving in dealerships next year, which is great news. But the Gazoo boss, he suggested the Supra won't actually be arriving until the second half of 2019. So we have a year and a half more to go, really, almost 2 years, before this thing actually starts showing up in dealerships, which is a little bit frustrating, but that's often the way it is with a lot of the development of these Japanese sports cars. They really want to fine-tune them, make sure it's 100% perfect, and so it just means there's a little more incubation period before these things are ready to go. So we'll have to continue to have patience, but hopefully we get to actually see the final design at some point relatively soon. Speaking of BMW, though, another vehicle that was spied this past week was the BMW M3 CS, which is, going to be a middle ground in between the competition package and the full-blown GTS, which we've seen for the M4. And we already were shown the M4 CS already, so this is, again, this is the same stuff they're applying to the M3. So it's going to have the same specs, which means it'll have probably 460 horsepower, which is 10 more than the competition package does, and should make it very impressive. It's got more of a sportier suspension setup than the competition package, which already was pretty sporty and stiff in my experience whenever I drove the competition package M3 not too long ago. So I don't know how much stiffer you're going to want to go, but you get 10 extra horsepower and the cooler looks, and I'm sure that we'll be shown that fairly soon, although it could wait till like the Geneva Motor Show as well. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, cool to see that. Another BMW that was officially revealed this past week was the X2. Finally, after so many months of teasing it out and us basically already knowing what it looks like, we now have all the official pictures finally and all the details on it. It is a 2018 model, the X2. It's based on the X1 as far as its platform, and the interior is almost identical. So basically think of this as like the X4 and the X6. This is just a sportier version of the X1 kind of. So it has the same 2-liter turbo motor that does 228 horsepower and 228 pound-feet of torque. It has all-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic. 0 to 60 is 6.3 seconds, and it weighs 3,662 pounds. So not super light for the smallest BMW, and one that almost basically looks like a lifted hatch. And they say that this all-wheel drive system, although it is all-wheel drive, it only sends power to the rear wheels whenever it needs it, so it functions primarily in front-wheel drive and as a front-wheel drive biased handling vehicle, I guess. Which is a little disappointing, but it's a crossover after all, so, not too big of a surprise there. Anyway, these are going to be arriving in the spring of 2018 here, and they didn't announce any kind of pricing, but typically the X4s and the X6s are more expensive than the X3 and X5s they're based on, so chances are this will be more expensive than the $37,000 base price for the X1. But anyway, pretty cool to see that. Porsche has revealed a new 911 model this past week called the Carrera T, and T stands for touring, I believe, and so basically this is like a stripped out lightweight version of the base Carrera. So same 370 horsepower, 339 pound-feet of torque as a base Carrera. It has a shorter rear axle ratio and mechanical diff lock, so that helps it to be a little bit quicker accelerating than a standard Carrera. So 0 to 60 is 4.3 seconds with the manual, which is 0.1 second faster than the standard base Carrera. So, I mean, really not a difference you'll be able to tell. And so 4 seconds 0 to 60 with the PDK, which is still available here for this bare bones one. Another reason to get the manual though here is it's got a 2 mile per hour higher top speed of 182 versus 180 for the PDK. Other things though, it's basically just supposed to be lighter weight and more raw. So it's got lightweight rear glass that's thinner, less sound deadening insulation, so you're going to hear more inside of it. It's got cloth door pulls and no infotainment or radio, which is a pretty bold step to take, to just have that completely deleted. I'm sure you can pay to add it back in, but it's one of those things. It's like the old Top Gear joke where like the more stuff that Porsche takes out of the Porsche for you, the more expensive it gets. And so, you know, you could have a base Carrera which comes with a radio for 12 grand cheaper, or you can pay extra money and not get a radio. So it's kind of funny. But it does give you a lot of good things, and it probably is a good value if you consider the pricing of Porsche options. So it comes with standard, the PASM Sport suspension, which is 0.39 inches lower for the ride height. It has a shorter gear lever for the manual, so it it should be a shorter shift. Rear wheel steering is an option, but it comes standard with the 20-inch Carrera S wheels, standard sports exhaust. It's got those side stripes you see, and you can get full bucket seats. And if you go for that option, then it does delete the rear seat, although you could probably pay to add it back in potentially. But if you don't go for those full buckets, there are standard, I think, the Sport Tech seats, which it still does come with a back seat. Anyway, the starting price for this is going to be $103,150. So it's about 12 grand more, like I said, than a base standard Carrera, but you're getting, all these other options that probably total well over 12 grand, and you get a special, more rare model than a standard Carrera. So I think overall it's probably a pretty good, worthwhile thing, as far as, and it's going to be a little more raw too. So as long as you don't mind that, I think it's a very cool idea. And anyway, that's going to be arriving in March for those of you that are interested. Some Mustang news this past week. Ford officially revealed the Performance Pack Level 2 for the 2018 Mustang GT. Now, this was rumored for a while, and it showed up in the order guide, but we didn't have any details on it. But now Ford has officially given us all the details and all the info on it, and some pictures to go along with it as well. So basically, to break it down, this package is this. You get most of this, all the same stuff as the standard Level 1 Performance package. So this adds MagnaRide into that, which was already like $1,600 extra on its own, or $1,700 in addition to the performance package. But this also, with the level 2, gives you lowered and stiffer springs. So there's a little bit of a lower ride height, although they didn't say specifically how much lower. You even get stiffer anti-roll bars for the front and the rear, and you get wider wheels and tires. So, and apparently the MagnaRide is specifically tuned to work with these lower springs that are stiffer and everything. So overall, it's just a much better handling vehicle is kind of the message they're trying to get across here. You also get a new front splitter and a smaller rear lip spoiler, which helps with additional downforce and makes it look cooler for sure. But those tires, so this thing is basically trying to be a 1LE competitor big time. And with the Camaros, they're very impressive with the 1LEs. So this has very wide tires, 305 wide tires all around. They're 305/30 R19s, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires at all 4 corners. So, and the front, even though all the tires are the same size, the wheels are different widths. So in the front, it's 19 by 10.5 wide wheels, and in the back, it's 19 by 11 inch wheels. But yeah, that's 1.5 inches wider than the standard performance package wheels. Those are actually the same tires you get on the Shelby GT350R. So very impressive tire setup. Probably wouldn't make for a great daily driver, but for a track car, you better believe it's going to be amazing. So the whole package is $6,500, which sounds high, but actually it's $500 cheaper than the 1LE package. If you were to get that package for a standard Camaro SS, it's $7,000, so $500 cheaper. And if you think about it, so that's the performance pack for the standard level 1 performance package for the GT Mustangs are already $4,000. So $2,500 extra bucks. I mean, the wheels and tires alone are worth $2,500. But on top of that, you get the MagnaRide suspension, which is $1,700 on its own. And then it's just, you got the lip, the spoilers, and all that kind of stuff. And overall, I think it's a bargain. If you want that stuff, if you want all that stuff, then it's going to be impressive. I'm sure it's going to be pretty stiff. Again, like I said, not sure as a daily driver how great that would be. I think the standard performance package will be the best for someone that wants to daily drive something. But if you want a track special, there you go. Very impressive, and so awesome to see them offering that. Speaking of the Camaro, though, they have a new edition they released this past week as well. It's the Hot Wheels 50th Anniversary Edition. They're going to be showing its SEMA, and so we have some pictures of it here. You get this special orange paint. The wheels are special, and you get some additional interior flourishes that are orange there instead of the standard red. But this Hot Wheels package, just for the trim changes, it's $5,000. Now, it's limited production. They're only going to be building 2,500 of them. But yeah, that's a lot of money for special paint, wheels, and interior color. But anyway, interesting to see that. More noteworthy Camaro news. The 2019 Camaro refresh was spied yet again. And so, you know, it's had that huge nose cone on the front throughout the entire development here of the refreshed Camaro, which hopefully means there's going to be some larger changes to the front nose of the vehicle that makes it either pointier or larger or something. But I gotta say, with that nose cone on there, it really makes it look a little larger, which I think helps to fit in with the Mustang and Challengers a little bit better. But as you can see, a lot of that is superficial, and you can see how far back the headlights are there. You can see the headlights now, their new revised headlights, and how it's just an evolution of the current Camaro. It's nothing wildly different, but that LED strip seems to run a little bit further up closer to the grille there and extend further than it does on current models. Taillights in the back look a little darker and a little more advanced than before as well, which is, you know, going to be, I'm sure, a good improvement. But yeah, who knows what's going on with that front bumper, since they're still running those nose cones. The only ones that didn't have them were the ZL1, which still had the current, you know, front end on it, and that was custom tweaked for the ZL1, so maybe the ZL1 won't get the changes in the front end there like the standard Camaros, or at least not for the first year or so. But anyway, there's rumors we could be seeing this new refreshed Camaro at the Detroit Auto Show in January, which is pretty cool. And so hopefully we do see it there. Another thing I will mention, going back to Mustang news, there's also a rumor now that the 2018 Bullitt will actually be shown at the Detroit Auto Show in January. And I don't want to give too much away because I don't want to give away my source, but I will say that it sounds like it's pretty much confirmed that it's going to be arriving at Detroit in January. And so, yes, I will give more info, and hopefully we'll have more info to share, or teasers or something soon. But that sounds like the game plan for that. So Detroit is going to be an awesome show this year. We got the Camaro, we got Mustang Bullitt, and all kinds of other stuff that we've been hearing, possibly Corvettes and things. And I will be at the Detroit Auto Show this year, so I'm very excited for all that kind of stuff. Continuing on, though, with even more reveals here for this week, Aston Martin has shown off a few more pictures of their Vanquish Zagato shooting brake, which was shown with just one single rendering back whenever the other Zagatos were revealed a couple of months ago. And so now we have more pictures here of the actual shooting brake version in the flesh here. And they're only making 99 of these. They're, you know, like they already said, they're all sold out already, of course. And yes, it's the same glorious Vanquish, just with a hatch. So a V12, naturally aspirated, just wonderful. And yes, but unfortunately very limited production, very expensive, and very rare. So another vehicle from Aston Martin that they teased that is actually going to be available in larger quantities is the new Vantage. And they showed off a picture of just the back end there, where you can see a taillight that seems to go across the entire back end there, and it looks very promising. And so there's rumors that this is going to be revealed before the end of the year. So maybe the LA Auto Show, or just something online here before the end of the year. But anyway, awesome to hear that. They also the rumors are saying that we'll see a V8 version first that uses that same 4-liter twin-turbo AMG motor that's in the new DB11 V8. That's going to make its debut first, and then there will be a V12 that comes later. And we've been hearing that this is going to be available with a manual most likely as well. Hopefully that's for both the V8 and the V12. But anyway, hopefully we'll hear more details about the new Vantage soon, and you get a good look at its drop-dead gorgeous looks that we've already seen teased many times now. Some other interesting news from Audi here this past week is they confirmed, now last week I talked about the new A7, which you can go watch last week's video if you want to see that car, but during that reveal they were able to talk, a few people were able to talk with the Audi executives about their new naming scheme, which they talked about in Europe and said was going to be a global reveal and a global rollout of this new naming scheme. It's going to start with the new A8s, where they base it on horsepower, so there'll be like a 55 badge on the back of the higher horsepower A8s, and then you know, they'll go up and down with numbers. Thankfully, it was a very confusing system, and thankfully they say it's not coming to the United States. It's only for Europe, and that's because Europe has so many different engine options that it makes sense to be more specific over there. But over here, we're just going to keep with the same typical model designation, since we only get, you know, 1 or 2 engines for each Audi variant here in the States. So that's good to hear. Speaking of additional models, though, Mitsubishi this past week at the Tokyo Auto Show, they actually announced they're going to have 6 all-new models that they're working on, plus 5 additional redesigns, and all 11 of these vehicles are actually going to be launched over the next 3 years. So lots of new product here from Mitsubishi in the next 3 years. We already know, you know, the Eclipse Cross, which we've already seen, which is coming to the United States. And then we also know about the X-Blander, which is something that only Japan gets, and it's like a minivan crossover large thing. But the others, it's tough to say which models they have in mind. You know, there's probably gonna be some kind of large SUV to compete with other stuff here in the States. And then of course there's probably gonna be replacements for the old Outlander Sport and Outlander, and probably some kind of electric crossover at some point as well. Maybe this E-Evolution will make it to production. I'm not sure what exactly they're working on and which ones we'll even get in the States. We might only get 1 or 2 of them, and the other ones might be for other markets. But they said all told, you know, there's going to be 6 all new models and 5 redesigns here coming from Mitsubishi relatively soon. Some unfortunate news here for those of you that like the G-Wagon from Mercedes. They announced that the AMG G65 Final Edition is coming. So they're ending production of the G65 with this Final Edition. And so that was always the craziest of the G-Wagon. So it had the twin-turbo V12, you know, with 630 horsepower, 738 pound-feet of torque, which amazingly, with that much power, only got this thing 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds because it was just such a heavy beast. But anyway, they're making 65 of these Final Editions, and they're all going to be in this black with these bronze accents. And we know an all-new G-Wagon is coming. It's completely new from the ground up for once, because it's otherwise, you know, the current G-Wagon, I think, is like a 30-year-old platform or something crazy like that. So this one's going to be totally new, and they may have fast versions of that. I'm sure they will as well. But this is the end of this generation with the G65. And anyway, if you want to get one of those 65 that were being built, they're going to be 310,000 euros each. I'm not sure if they're coming to the States, but yeah, pretty expensive and crazy, but cool to see that. Some other more unfortunate news, even more so than the G-Wagon, is the last Australian-built Holden rolled off the line this past week. It was a Commodore, of course, and so this is really monumental, not just because of Holden leaving Australia, but this is the end of Australian car production in general. Toyota and Ford pulled out last year. Holden was the last ones building cars in Australia, and they now are, you know, ceasing operations as well. So they said that people have just been buying more foreign vehicles, foreign-built vehicles and things like that. And so Holden will continue to stay around. They just won't be built in Australia. They're going to be built in Germany instead and then shipped to Australia. But it's really just unfortunate because the amount of loss of jobs. I mean, Holden was like a staple. Think of it like General Motors or Ford here in the States, and how many people work at all those production facilities. So for Australia to lose, you know, Holden manufacturing is really unfortunate. And they say the government plans to spend more on defense spending in Australia there, and so they're going to retrain all those factory workers to hopefully build like ships and submarines and things like that. So hopefully there won't be too many jobs lost, but still just crazy to see that. But I don't want to end on a sad note, so the last story this week is some very fresh, hot news here just in the past day about the mid-engine Corvette. So someone was doing some paint testing at the new paint facility for the new Corvette, and they were testing how the paint looks on the new front and rear bumpers for this mid-engine Corvette, supposedly. And as you can see, it looks very dramatic. It has a very gaping front end there with lots of air intakes and just very wide open. There's hardly any front bumper to paint. It's kind of crazy. Back end looks very extreme as well, with more, you know, I guess vents in the back there and things like that. Although the taillight area does look kind of similar to a C7 in some ways. But anyway, so the fact that they're paint testing, according to GM Inside News, this was posted on a Corvette forum and they're reporting on it. So huge thanks to the person on the Corvette forum that posted these up. But anyway, because they're paint testing, that means they're far enough along that basically they should be producing these things within 12 months. And so there were rumors that they would start production of these January of 2019, and this certainly seems to line up to be pretty close to that. It might even be a little bit sooner than that. So basically, mid-engine Corvette is actually finally happening within a year, which is wild. And so I'm not sure when we'll see a debut of this. You know, maybe depending on the rollout I could see it even being Detroit in January, but that would be a little early. Maybe New York, here in April of 2018, or maybe even a little bit later than that. But anyway, very exciting. Just a little glimpse of what we're going to see for the new mid-engine Corvette, and very exciting there. So anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know all your thoughts about everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.